Welcome to this plenary session on blockchain, cryptocurrency, and artificial intelligence, the next digital soul. Today our panelist is Mr. Holley, founder of the Mauritius Blockchain Advisory Foundation and co-founder of the Mauritius Foundation. And we would like to apologize that Dr. Ranto will not be present. And this session will be chaired by Dr. Ranto. So, Dr. Ranto has 23 years work experience in the IT industry in Africa, including 14 years with Oracle in Middle East and Africa. He is presently the managing director for Oracle in Mauritius and leader for solution engineering in Sub-Saharan Africa. He has various academic publications and has presented several research papers in international conferences covering e-government, information security, e-learning, and leadership change management. He has also published his work in respected international journals. His doctoral thesis focused on government service digitization in the African context. So I'd like to welcome Dr. Ranto to his presentation.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here amongst you this morning. And it's also a privilege to share with you my knowledge and chair this session as well with my colleague there, Mr. Joshua, who's doing a fantastic job for our country, which needs that kind of support as well. We are living in interesting times, and we are actually creating history with all the great technologies that we, as the IT leaders, are bringing to the country, and the kind of difference that we can make out of the application of these technologies. So we call it the storm of data, or the data explosion. Just as a matter of statistics, the amount of data that we produce every day is truly mind-boggling. There are 2.5 quintillion bytes of data created each day. Quintillion has 18 zeros. But that pace is only accelerating with the growth of the Internet of Things. And over the last 2 years alone, 90% of the data in the world was generated. As I started speaking now, a few minutes earlier, till now, around at least 1 million new digital artifacts have been uploaded on the Internet. Now, this is the pace at which we are moving today, and we are calling it the data storm or the data explosion. A good question would be, now that we are seeing the application of artificial intelligence in our daily world, so the question would be, where was AI all that while? Where was AI? Why was AI not being utilized in our lives as much as it is being today? Research has started on AI probably in the 1960s, but it's only over the last few years that we've started seeing AI being so prevalent in our daily lives. AI needs big data to work. AI is dependent upon big data to work. And big data has become a reality few years back. And this is what actually has pulled AI forward to work together with big data. Because if we do not have data, there is not enough volume of data, there's not enough velocity and variety in the data, then we cannot pretend to be doing artificial intelligence. And one very clear application of artificial intelligence is the autonomous vehicles. So the difference that we make between, the manual vehicles and the automatic vehicles and the autonomous vehicles is that there is an added level of intelligence at every step. Your automatic vehicle can actually shift gears on its own. It's got the intelligence to detect when is the right time to do so. And the autonomous car, it doesn't need a driver. the autonomous car runs on its own. Obviously, there have been a couple of incidents, but for every big transformational project in life, there have been incidents. I think the last incident that we're talking about happened in San Francisco around 8 months back, right? And after that, we didn't hear about any other incident with autonomous vehicles. Now, for these autonomous vehicles to work, there's a lot of data that is required, and there has to be a machine that would actually process that data. Now, just think about this when we start using autonomous car. And by the way, by the year 2021, we'll have a big taxi company in London which will start using autonomous vehicles on public roads. That is in 2021, which is 2 years down the line, right? Just think about it. When it comes to our country, probably your kids or the kids of your kids would not need to have a driving license, right? And if we extend the idea a little bit further, we say, how about having an app? How about having an app which is let's call it car as a service. With car as a service, you just step outside, you call the car, it comes. You don't need a driver. You don't need no parking. You don't need no garage in your yard. And the car would drop you wherever you need to go. When that happens, all the amount of parking lots that have been allocated, for example, in the cyber city, today we know it's a real major problem. In Port Louis, it's a problem. Every other small town in the country, parking is a problem. So this car would know where to go and park itself. And it changes the whole landscape. Instead of having a parkade at the beginning of the cyber city at the very entrance, you'll probably see a nice green park out there. So the very concept of planning, town planning or urban planning would change with autonomous vehicles. Now, the kind of impact that it'll have on the quality of air is also very interesting, maybe a subject of research as well. But interestingly enough, autonomous vehicles are actually becoming part of reality of our daily lives. So I'll go quickly through a couple of points here. What is the basic essence of technology? It should add value to our lives. And one of the key elements that we have seen, very needy in Africa, is food safety or food security. It is also about the quality of education and the quality of health. Now, these also form part of the goals that have been set for Africa for the year 2030. And these were developed out of the Millennium Development Goals that were defined by the UN. So essentially, a lot of focus would go on education, health, and food safety. There are a few predictions that I would like to share with you here. I know the quality of the text probably is not very readable, but I'll try to read it out for you. Right. One of them says that 50% of data in enterprises will be managed autonomously. Now, it's not just autonomous cars, but it is also autonomous management of data. What does this mean? This means that as data comes into your enterprise, there is no specific requirement for someone to go and manage that data. That data is expected. The system or the processors know what to do with that data. They know how to process it and where to feed it so that the data can actually be used to make sense for the enterprise that you are running, for the business or for the department that you are running. Does this mean that the administrators of databases will be out of their jobs? Now, basically, 75% of jobs that will exist by the year 2035 do not exist yet, which means that there will be new kinds of jobs that will exist. We've already started hearing about data scientists. Now, earlier on, we knew about actuarial science as a topic of study. We extend that, we bring the dimension of analytics to it, then we have the concept of analytics. We also have the concept of data science. So these data scientists now are job roles that need to be filled in. So the question is, are the database administrators going to be reinvented, reconverted, reskilled, or upskilled to play that role of data scientists? Now, each and every organization will need to have a data scientist going forward. That is the first thing. Second thing, if we go higher up from database administrators to chief information officers, question is, will we require chief information officers? I think these people also will need to reinvent ourselves. From chief information officer to chief innovation officer. And today, every other enterprise wants to innovate and is innovating in one way or the other. But what will actually make the difference between someone or enterprise which is innovating and another one which is not whether they are innovating or not, it is the speed at which they are innovating. And here I would like to draw a parallel between mobile technology or the adoption of mobile phones and the adoption of cloud technology. So, had mobile phones not existed, the amount of investment in terms of logistics, resources, time would really have made it impossible to give the same level of penetration that we have in Africa today for telephony. Now, if we maintain the same way of adopting IT in our enterprises, then we will still suffer from the same digital divide. We say that we are in Africa and we believe that we will keep on suffering from digital divide forever, and this is definitely not true, because access to computing technology have been seriously catalyzed by the advent of cloud technologies. So if any of you wants to have access to a platform of artificial intelligence, you go onto a cloud platform, you swipe your card, and you will have access to the cloud platform within the hour. This is how fast you can have access. Then the concept of digital divide, again, is going down the drain. Now, this is also bringing very serious digital transformations. Now, the example that we took about the autonomous car is clearly a digital transformation, example of digital transformation. And for the ladies of the house, if you go to, for example, Marks & Spencer to go do your shopping, you just go in front of a camera. The camera will actually picture the structure of the body, and then you can actually swipe different types of clothing, depending on the style that you like. You can even go to the extent of choosing different wigs with different hair colors to get a view of what will be the ultimate view of yourself. Now, this is another example of digital transformation, and these are actually changing business models. So business models are called to be transforming, and there are several kinds of businesses that will not exist in the near future. Now, I was showing to my daughter the cartridge that we use to put in cameras. I think many of you will actually understand, will recognize that. But go to the next generation. They will actually laugh at it. They'll be wondering what it is. Now, that's also another transformation. And as we used to call, I know in the past, whenever you would want a camera, you wouldn't say, pass me the camera, you'd say, pass me the Kodak, right? Because the brand image of Kodak was that strong. So ask yourself the question now, where is Kodak? Right? Now, the integration of different types of devices into mobile phones has been very, very strong, so much so that it's kicking others out of business, clearly. And now, this is one of the predictions about autonomous database. And prediction number 4, it says that artificial intelligence and emerging technologies will double our productivity. Now, how does that happen in real life? If, for example, you are traveling on business, and upon your return, you have to submit your expenses. Once you submit your expenses, it your immediate line manager for approval. But the line manager may not need to go and approve. The system can approve for the line manager. Why? Because the system will base it on previous behavior, previous expenses that were submitted. Was the amount within the same range? Maybe a variation of a tolerance of 2%, 3%, 5%, depending upon what the company policy is. And it will be approved. And this will save the expensive time of managers, because managers tend to be more expensive than individual contributors, apparently, right? So now this is one example. Another example is if you're applying for your leaves, right? If the leave application, the current scenario at hand, if it is very similar to previous scenario, then it will actually be accepted, automatically approved by the system. Now, this saves a lot of time for line managers. Now, these are 2 simple examples, okay? But artificial intelligence is actually integrated in a lot of devices that we have at home now. your microwave, your washing machine, your washing your cloth dryer, these are different appliances that already have AI embedded. We've heard about the concept of smart homes. So at the bottom of it, yes, IoT, of course, but at the bottom of it, it is artificial intelligence that is being used to actually enable those devices. Now, however, we need to be able to measure as well, because we can't manage what we don't measure. And in order to measure, for instance, you have started a campaign at home to use less electricity. You've got this TV, this fridge. How do you know how much each of these devices is consuming? Because you want to have a Pareto approach, for instance. So in order to understand how much is being utilized by each of these, you need to have IoT devices. And then there would be a dashboard that comes to you telling you which is the device consuming the maximum. Now, these types of devices will be with us in Mauritius very soon. Some of them are probably there already. Now, 80% of all enterprise workloads will move to the cloud. What is an enterprise workload in our context here? Whatever computing resources that you're using within your enterprise today, they will all go to the cloud. Now, a good thing about it is that everyone is so concerned about the environment. We want to burn less and less oil. We want to reduce our carbon footprint. So having 10,000 data centers across Port Louis doesn't help. But having a few data centers where all computing requirements converge, we have only these few data centers that are operating, serving the whole of the capital. This is where we are able to reduce our carbon footprint. So this is what moving to the cloud will bring to organizations as well. Now, whether these are mission-critical systems that are running or simple applications like your HR system or financial system, it'll happen. Now, one question to ponder about. We've heard about blockchain technologies, and my friend Joshua will talk in more details about this. But have we thought of, for example, having a national cryptocurrency for the country? Can Mauritius tomorrow have a national cryptocurrency for itself? What will it do? It'll help a lot of people control their expenses better, for sure. How about the control on terrorism? How about the control on drugs, which is a major problem for our society today? Because there's a lot of parallel cash which is in circulation. With virtualization of the currency, everything will be so transparent, and you can trust that information that there will be no other way. So if you want to deal with drugs, then probably the dark web will be the place for it. But then still, if you're dealing in cryptocurrency, depending upon the kinds of regulations that the central bank comes up with, there'll be much more control than we could think of. Right? Now, 70% of customer interactions will be automated. We've all heard about robots. I think there were a couple of robots that visited our country December and January. We've heard about Sophia and about Pepper as well. But these are physical robots. There are also software robots. We call them chat robots, short of which is chatbot. Right? A chatbot which has now been renamed by the industry as digital assistant. So if you need to apply for the next loan, for example, you just invoke the chatbot. The chatbot will tell you, yes, Mr. Ramtohal, you have got 5,000 rupees of savings, and you want to buy this new car, which is costing 5 million. You cannot buy this, right? This is one example. Or it can say, Mr. Ramtohal, you're saving in 5 million rupees. You want to buy this plot of land, which is 2 million rupees. You can actually buy that. You put the remaining in fixed deposit, and then you'll have 3.80% interest every year on this. At the end of 3 years, you'll have this much of money, and you can go for the next project. So it's a financial advisor. It's a chatbot which has actually been fed with a lot of intelligence into it. Now, predictions also state that people, 85%, actually, this one says 75, but 85% is being actually forecasted by Gartner of customer interactions will be through chatbots. So there is no face-to-face interactions. Then are we going more and more towards the touchless society? We have already started living the cashless society. Now we're also going towards a touchless society, right? But that's another matter. It seems people will be talking more to chatbots than to their partners at home. That's, again, even more touchless going forward, right? So we talked about the 50% of data being managed autonomously. Just let's look at this explosion of data here. Just a few numbers. On Google, 3.5 million search queries, and this is actually happening. That is every minute that this is happening. Let me just check on that. Yeah. So it's really an exponential growth of data. 120 new accounts are being created. 46,200 posts are being uploaded. And 156 million emails being sent. This is the kind of data explosion that we are talking about. But then it is not only about having the data. It's about having the data, using that data to extract insight, and using that insight to take immediate action. So we combine data with insight and immediacy. And this is what helps us then better serve the needs of our customers or of our stakeholders, and do that very, very quickly. So the autonomous or intelligent databases that we talked about, what do? They actually reduce the need for human labor. They protect themselves from attacks, which means that a lot of security loopholes on those data stores would actually be identified and automatically addressed. And they can also repair themselves. Hence, we said that we wouldn't really be requiring the administrators, right? Now, there is so much happening. We've seen the data explosion up there. And if we think that we've seen it all, the answer obviously is no, not yet. There's so much more to happen. We are yet to see the autonomous cars on the roads of our country here. And there's so much more application of artificial intelligence that we'll start seeing in our daily lives. Now, we do these kinds of discussions not just with yourselves, but we also talk a lot to directors of companies at board level, and every other company in Africa, really, every other company we're talking to, they really want to adopt these technologies so that they can leapfrog towards further development and innovation. Ladies and gentlemen, I shall now just move forward and have Joshua of the Mauritius Blockchain Advisory Foundation and co-founder of Mauritius Ethereum Foundation. He's a blockchain and ICO advisor, speaker and writer. He actually toggles between Dubai, Mauritius, and Uganda, and his primary interest lies in the logistics of marrying legacy systems and asset classes with blockchain technology. He's a blockchain enthusiast, advising government, industry, startups, and established enterprises on how to couple the existing operations with advantages of blockchain technology. Joshua counts quantum computing, AI, and IoT as some of his main interests. And we are pleased to have Joshua here. Final information, he's married and has 4 children. So a lot of work at home, Joshua, and you managed to find time to do these for us. Thank you very much. Please.
Good morning. Can you hear me? So I'll just give a brief introduction about myself. My name's Joshua Holley. I'm originally from Wyoming in the U.S., and that happens to also be a very favored state for blockchain and cryptocurrency. And I run a consulting firm out of Wyoming. It's Rocky Mountain Blockchain Intelligence. Our primary focus with Rocky Mountain Blockchain Intelligence is more on the capital market side. So we're looking at how we can integrate emerging technologies like blockchain and tokenization into capital raise vehicles that exist in the analog world and combining those together. So I came to Mauritius back in 2009 for the first time. I had the good fortune of meeting my wife in India. We lived here together for about 4 years, had my first 2 children. I have a very diverse background. I've been an entrepreneur my entire life. Started in the construction and real estate industry, and then moved into commodities market, physical commodities trade. I got into blockchain and cryptocurrency primarily because of the inefficiencies in the commodities market. What I saw, particularly in our dealings with Africa, I was based in Southeast Asia at the time, and we were selling physical rice and sugar into Africa. And we would have settlements on LC within the banking system that would take up to 9 months to process. So a massive amount of inefficiency in legacy capital systems. So that led me to investigate blockchain and cryptocurrency. Eventually, I made my way into Bitcoin, found out about Bitcoin. and brushed it off, frankly speaking. I really didn't pay that much attention to it because what I saw of Bitcoin was on the dark web. Without realizing I could have made billions of dollars by now. So hindsight is 20/20, as they say. Nonetheless, a few years later, I came across Ethereum. And Ethereum is an enterprise system of blockchain. It's a decentralized enterprise system. And that led me to seriously look at the technology and ways that I could start utilizing the technology and bringing that into the focus of emerging markets like Mauritius and the rest of Africa. So I founded the Blockchain Foundation in 2017. And the primary goal of the Blockchain Foundation, it's now known as the Blockchain Mauritius Foundation. So we changed the name. We added some board members. We've got some local people involved. And the primary focus of the foundation is to advocate for education, primarily to the youth. Mauritius has some really smart kids here. In fact, I've been speaking at several of the local universities, Unicity being one of those, and I have met some of the most brilliant students that I've met anywhere in the world. So it's really a privilege to be a part of that and be able to contribute to the evolution of this technological revolution and adoption. So speaking to AI, I actually live in Curepeep. I'm based in Curepeep now. And it took me about an hour and 45 minutes from Curepeep to Port Louis only. This morning, I left about 7:25 this morning. I actually timed myself. By the time I arrived in Port Louis, an hour and 45 minutes later. So here's an example of a case where AI can be applied extraordinarily efficiently. And what that means is IoT devices integrating with smart grid systems. And smart grid systems is basically an integration of AI, IoT, maybe some biometrics, any type of data device into a centralized system that can then calculate the movement or the efficiency of that network, and that can be anything, practically speaking. So it can be traffic, for example, and there's very sophisticated AI systems of traffic management that exist in the world today. This would be a perfect application of AI in Mauritius. So I was thinking, how can I get AI to Mauritius for this specific purpose so I don't have to spend 2 hours of a day in traffic on the way to my meetings? I'd like to ask the audience a question. How many of you own or have owned in the past any type of cryptocurrency? By a show of hands. 2, 3, 4. So one of the things that cryptocurrency and blockchain bring as an opportunity, particularly in my opinion for emerging markets like Africa, is this extraordinary opportunity for access. There's a gentleman here that's been traveling. He's originally from Nigeria. He's about 40, 41, 42 years old. And he has been working for the past 20 years trying to break into the global market and has had zero success. He came across Bitcoin about 2 years ago and opened himself a wallet and started writing and studying about blockchain and cryptocurrency. He has then been able to contact some of the largest publications on a global basis, start writing for them, and get paid in cryptocurrency. So it's afforded him an opportunity to become a global citizen. So it's about access, it's about creating opportunity, it's about creating, let's say, a decentralized system where you don't have these checks and balances in the sense that there's a centralized control mechanism. There is still a check and balance mechanism there, but this is sort of a consensus idea. So when we talk about blockchain, the basic concept of blockchain is a consensus mechanism, a distributed consensus mechanism, something like a global computer. And what that is in practice is nodes distributed on many different computers all around the world. And those nodes act as consensus mechanisms for validation of various transactions. So that could be financial transactions. It could be, for example, data concerning healthcare. It could be identity management, right? These are potential evolutions of blockchain going into the future. So I attended the AI conference in Dubai last week, and it's the largest AI conference. And I think that, when we're talking about AI, we're talking about blockchain, we're not just talking about one specific thing. It's the integration or confluence of these technologies to create a total revolution. And what that is, and it is being defined as the fourth industrial revolution. That's what we're moving to today. That's inclusive of AI, that's inclusive of blockchain, but it's also IoT. It's going to be quantum computing. It's miniaturization of technology, so nanotechnology. There are AI systems today that are integrating with the human body. We are getting to the point where we can actually implant devices into the human brain and change behavior or change patterns within the body. This is extraordinary. So imagine in the future, if you will, I'm going to take an imagination of the future, where you have a device installed in your body. And this device is an enhancement device. It could be a memory device. And it can also be access to your identity. It can be access to your bank account. Can you imagine going to the bank, you look in they scan your iris, and immediately your transaction is executed? This is the actual future. So there are some questions as to whether or not that's the life that we want to live. Do we really want to integrate with technology? Do we want to become cyber humans? A lot of people might say, no, I want to remain myself. I think I can be the best person I am without technology. A lot of people will say, no, I think that technology can make me a better person, so why not integrate that? So there are many questions around the emergence of this technology and how that technology gets governed. One of the things that the good doctor mentioned is the need for a data scientist in every organization. AI is moving so quickly that data scientist will be AI. You'll be communicating with an AI, right? And that may be virtually, or it may be in the form of a physical robot device. So we are moving in a very, very fast pace, and it's a very different direction than what we've seen for the past 20 years. Are we really sure that that's the direction we want to go? I was thinking yesterday, I get so many messages on my phone. I was thinking yesterday, I want to find a place where I can go for a week. No internet, no cell phone, nothing. Turn it all off so I can just detox. So there's other technologies that are of concern as well. 5G technology, for example. 5G technology is military-grade communication. Military-grade communication. It is extraordinarily powerful. It's used actually as a weapon, traditionally. And now we're going to roll out 5G across the planet. The capability of 5G in military application is that it can be pointed for group disbursement, for example. If there's a riot, you have a large 5G device, point it at the rioters, and it creates such a pain in the body, burning sensation, that the crowds disperse. So now we're rolling out this global system of 5G. Are we taking into consideration the effects on the human body? So just because it's technology doesn't mean that it's all good. These are questions that must be addressed. And that's one of the purposes of the foundation, is to make a consideration of the validity of the technology, make some audits on the technology, and promote technology that's actually beneficial to the human society and to the individuals that are applying it. So I'd like to open up for any questions. I apologize I didn't come prepared with a slide, but I'm very open and happy to answer any questions, however diverse they might be.
Thank you. We have some questions. each country create their own cryptocurrency, won't that return us to the age of having multi-currency economy, defeating the purpose of a universal currency?
So I'm a little divided on the topic of currency, and especially central bank issued currencies. When I look at central bank issued currencies, and especially from an inflationary perspective, the only time that it really makes sense in my mind for a cryptocurrency or a national cryptocurrency is if there are specific inflationary measurements or control mechanisms built into that currency model. So the beautiful thing about Bitcoin is that there's only so many Bitcoin that will ever be minted. So we know for a fact that inflation will not affect Bitcoin. In the sense of a global currency, there may be some benefit for a global currency as opposed to a national currency. But again, the question is, what is that currency actually backed by? And what are the inflationary measurements used to control that currency in application?
I think it's an interesting topic for debate, and it's also interesting for you that Joshua and myself, we don't align totally here, because if two men in business always agree, one of them will be unnecessary. So, given the kinds of challenges that African countries are facing today, especially when it comes to terrorism and the need for control and corruption, blockchain technology on which virtual currency can be built is definitely a good option to consider. And as per Gartner, there will be 5 national currencies, virtual currencies, that will be set up by the year 2022. But obviously, there are a lot of other considerations, as Joshua mentioned. But unless and until a country tries it, we'll probably not see what were the practical challenges of it. Blockchain is one kind of positioning, and a national currency is a different kind of positioning with different sets of challenges. It is probably worth trying and seeing it.
Okay, thank you. Our next question is, with AI and Internet of Things, how much financial investment does an individual or company have to invest in deploying such technology with cloud services?
Personally, I don't see a use case for individual deployment of IoT and AI on an individual basis. So I don't really see, unless you're looking to invest in a project, and as an investor, I wouldn't invest less than $100,000. But in terms of enterprise use cases, there's manifold enterprise use cases. You could be talking from a few $1 million to several $100 million, and it depends on the scope and scale of the enterprise.
Enterprises who have started using that, some of them have set up what we call as sandbox environments. So the sandbox environments would be very low-risk environments which target essentially tasks like training and hands-on access to the tools. There are several options available on the market today which would actually give you access to AI platforms. But AI doesn't work on its own, right? It need to have a database, it need to have a data warehouse, you need to have what we call as a use case or business context so you can develop something. The prices would vary a lot, and if you're looking at enterprise grade, of course, as Joshua mentioned, it can be on the high end. If you're looking at, for example, departmental data marts, on which you build up some AI algorithms, then the cost will be much lesser. Because with the cloud, you wouldn't need to go through the whole procurement cycle of buying hardware, software, storage, putting them together, testing them, maintaining them, etc. All that hassle is gone. So you just have a subscription, and it reduces the price, increases the access.
Thank you. We will take the last question in order to see to our time. How private is blockchain data? Do multimillionaires want their net worth to be public?
Well, I mean, the beauty of Bitcoin, for example, is the anonymity of the wallet, right? So when I have a wallet full of 1,000 Bitcoin, and Bitcoin's at $8,000 today, you can do the math, my data is not displayed, my personal data. Now, the transaction may be displayed, and that's actually a good thing, right? Because I know for a fact that I sent XYZ amount to XYZ wallet at said time. There's a timestamp. There's a very specific sequenced chain of events that are on-chain published. So from an informational management standpoint, when I look at a Bitcoin solution as a blockchain solution, that, yeah, it's extraordinarily efficient. And definitely as a high net worth individual, I want to use that. Absolutely. Yeah, so there is a major distinction between on-chain hacks and off-chain hacks. And in the case of Bitcoin, there has never been an on-chain hack. The security protocol behind Bitcoin is called SHA-256. This is a cryptography used by the US government in storage of its nuclear codes. So in terms of security, it is the highest level of cryptography. The US just upgraded its cryptography to SHA-356. Bitcoin is at SHA-256. There was a NIST report in 2014 that outlined the risk, potential risk, to the Bitcoin blockchain specifically from hackers within the quantum era. In other words, hackers that can harness a quantum computer. And they said that there is very, very little, the report said that there's very little risk of actually even with a quantum computer hacking the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, there's a question of risk when it comes to off-chain applications and exchanges being hacked and improper use of security protocol, etc., on the exchange, and this is where the majority of the hacks have taken place. That, in my opinion, is a duty of the oversight of regulatory bodies to ensure that those platforms are using the correct security protocol in order to ensure the security of the custody of those assets on the trading platform.
Thank you. One last question from the audience.
Sorry, I'm not very technical, but when you talk about off-chain security risks, would that, for example, cover the scenario of the 190 million that was lost in Crocodile?
Sorry, you're going to have to repeat the last part.
So you talk about off-chain security risks, and I wondered if you could just comment on how it happened. There was an incident in Canada with Quadriga where cryptocurrency users were basically locked out of their account when the founder of the company died. Are you aware of that incident?
Yeah, I mean, this is a perfect case where unqualified personnel are in executive positions and they're not using existing security data protocol. Because there are many very sophisticated security data protocols. The ISO security data protocols are, case in point, probably the most secure data protocol systems, at least by consensus, on the face of the planet. And every major enterprise uses ISO standards for their data encryption and data security protocols. So what took place with Quadriga is that a single individual had control of a hard wallet. Hard wallet is an off-chain wallet. So all of the assets that were deposited by clients in Quadriga were placed into a hard wallet. The individual controlling that hard wallet was the only individual with access to that wallet at any given point in time. Apparently, he held access to the wallet in his brain, and when he died, So essentially what that means is there was not a continuity protocol which every organization should and must have. So in other words, the Canadian government, the Canadian Securities Authority was, in my opinion, at fault by not regulating that securities exchange platform in the first place to comply with global compliance security standards.
Thank you.
There's one for you.